Good morning, everybody. Today we will be studying the one pass assembler. Now, in my previous video, I have already explained what is a two pass assembler or the working of a two pass assembler. Now, here one pass assembler works mainly for 8086 programming languages. Now, this is a sample assembly language code for 8086. If we see, we have the statement numbers over here. We have the sample program and we have the offset over here. Usually the problem again remains the same of forward reference problem. If we can see, this variable count has been used before it is declared. It has been declared somewhere at statement number 50 but had been used in statement number 10, in statement number 30. Hence the problem remains same. So the task now will be how to remove forward reference problem with the help of a single pass. We again start with designing of the databases. Now here again we have a table MOT, but this time this is slightly different to what we had studied in our MOT of two pass assembler. At that time we used to enter only the imperative statements inside the MOT, and the declarative and the assembler directive statements were to be entered inside the POT. Here the mnemonic opcode table MOT will have a combination of imperative, assembler directive as well as declarative statements. In short, all the statements will be put inside the MOT only, with a slight modification now. Machine opcode is the binary opcode equivalent to any given mnemonic. In that case, only imperative statements are going to have this binary machine opcodes, whereas the assembler directive and the declarative statements will not have these. Similarly, if we talk regarding the routine ID, the imperative statements will have the routine IDs. Routine ID stands for the routines which need to be called, the internal routines which need to be called in case we encounter any imperative or the assembler directive statements. Now, in that case, the imperative, assembler directive as well as declarative statements, all the three are going to have routine IDs because they will individually have routines which need to be triggered the moment you encounter these statements. Talking regarding format info, this format info is simply an information to let you know whether there is a single instruction format or multiple instruction format. In that case, assembler directive and declarative statements will not have this. Now, example over here is, for example, we write down jump if not equal to. If I write down jump if not equal to, it is a imperative statement or jump statement which has only a single format. In this case, this will be represented as 00H. But if I write a single jump XX, this means that if it is jump if not equal to, jump if equal to, or if I just write it in this way, jump if below or something like that. So there are different formats available for this. So at that time, this comes out to be FFH. So accordingly, this information will be present only with the imperative statements and not with the others. This finishes our MOT. Let's coming back to the SR tab. Now, this is the segment register table. Now, if we go back to our program, we need to see which are the segment registers available with us during our programming. Now, we have CS as the code segment and DS as the data segment. So, we have accordingly entered 1 and now here we need to know one thing. Okay, this is SR tab. Now here I will be entering this as 2. And right now these two things will be blank. ES and SS, because we have not yet encountered these things. So this becomes my current SR tab. Now the moment I go forward, here I am saying assume ES data and DS nothing. At this time, data segment is ES and my DS is rendered to nil. At that time, my SR tab will be updated. The updation of the SR tab will be now CS will be 1 because that remains to be the code segment, but the data segment now becomes ES. And the previous entry, that is CS is 1 and DS is 2, this entry will be stored inside something known as SRT, that is stored segment register table. So the previous entry is maintained here. Now if we encounter one more statement somewhere around here where we can see that CS is code and SS is data, so again this entry will be stored inside the STSRT and a new SR tab will be created with CS as 1 and SS as 2. Now multiple entries of STSRT will be created accordingly and everything needs to be stored. Hence we always store it in this way. STSRT #1. This indicates the first variety. Then if I store the next variety, that becomes STSRT #2. So accordingly the entries into the STSRT table will be stored. The next table which we see is a very important table, that is the symbol table. Now inside the symbol table we have a different structure as compared to what we had seen in our 2-pass assembler. Just have a look at all the columns. First one is symbol. So any mnemonic which does not have a predefined meaning inside the system is called as a symbol. So we have code according to this program. We have code here, we have data and we have count. These are the three things which we don't have specific meaning. So we enter them inside the symbol table. Next column is indicating EQU. Now are these statements having something like count EQU 10? Is there any statement of this form in the code? If yes, we need to initialize the previous value over here. If no, we are directly going to substitute this as n. The third column is segment name. This is just indicating whether the symbol you have encountered is a segment name or no. So in this case, code and data, these are segment names, but count is not a segment name. Hence, this is going to be n, the other two as y. Type, this is reserved for future use. So we exactly don't use it in a 1-pass assembly. Here we specify what is the offset in segment. Now offset in segment, we need to go back to our program and check where is count defined. So when count is defined, the offset is 004. At that moment, I enter here 004. I need to also specify which is going to be the owner segment over here. Now owner segment is the segment where the thing has been actually defined. Now here if we say ES as data and DS as nothing. So that means I am defining count under the data segment. And if I am defining it under the data segment, which is the current data segment right now, it is ES. At that moment, I refer back to my SR tab and I check out what is the segment number associated with ES and I make an entry over here. The next one is L. L stands for length. Length will always be 1 for any 8086 program. It is fixed, you can consider that. S is going to be size for count. If you just refer to the program back, we are returning it as DW, that is a data word. In that kind, define word, I'm sorry. So at that kind, it is going to be taking 2 bytes into the memory. So for that reason, we write here DW, that is 2 bytes. Source statement number, this is the simple source statement number which we take from here, that is where it has been actually defined in the memory. So you just take down the statement numbers accordingly. Now the next 3 columns are slightly important, which are actually serving you for the 1-pass assembler. The first one is pointer to the first FRT. FRT stands for forward reference table. Now let's go and check what is the structure of a forward reference table. Now this entry for count will be actually this entry will actually be pointing to this location. This entry for count will be actually pointing to this location. Now, what is the forward reference table? The first entry will give you the SR tab hash. So you are going to tell what is the first forward reference where you are encountering this issue. So the first forward reference which we are encountering the issue is here. So this is under SR tab 1 because at that time CS was the code and DS was the data. So we make an entry here as 1. Then we say at which instruction address are we going to face this issue. So instruction address is here 006, that is the offset. Later on we say usage code, it is going to be D for data, I for instructions, and so on and so forth. So for that reason we can keep D because this is actually a data which we are referring to. And we make an entry into the source statement number. So source statement number you directly get from here. This is the first forward reference which we are encountering. Let's go for the next one. The next one is entered inside SR tab hash 2 because we are making the next encounter in your ES data segment. Hence the instruction address is 16, it is D and the source statement number. So these are the two entries into the forward reference table. So you have this counter will be pointing to this location. And this current location will be pointing to this location. Moving forward, the next entry is the pointer to the first CRT. CRT stands for cross-reference table. So we also have one more table, that is cross-reference table, which is just used to verify at the end whether all the forward references have been handled by us successfully or no before the final assembly takes process. Now, the first CRT, this entry will be here. Let's say I'll make this one and this also this one, and this is pointer to the last CRT. So I'll be say, let's say, sorry, we say this to be this 2 and this entry will be here. It's the last CRT. So we are making references to two cross-reference entries such to verify that from the first to the last all the references have been handled or no. So cross-reference table is a very simple one. Here you are just going to have the first column as the reference and the second one is the source statement where all you are going to encounter this. So the first encounter is at 10, second encounter is at 30 and the last place where it has been declared is 50. So the cross-reference table will just cross-verify whether at these memory locations the forward reference has been successfully completed or no. This is how a one-pass assembler works. Thank you.